welcome to the Raleigh Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission meeting for January 11th. I'm looking at all the ones on my calendar. The first meeting of 2021. Welcome, everybody. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Dwight Otwell, and I am the chair of the commission currently. I'll also introduce Elizabeth Alley if she would like to say hi. She is our vice chair and chair of the policy committee.
Hey, everybody.
And we're going to go down the list and say hello to everybody. Let me see if I can go, not miss anybody this time, and ask you to introduce yourself and the committee that you work on, please. And I will include staff in this. So Mr. Lamb, you are first on my list. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I am Eric Lamb. I'm the city's transportation planning manager.
And next up is Mr. Black.
Hey, Paul Black. I am the bicycle and pedestrian program manager for the city.
And Ms. Godwin.
I'm Barbara Godwin, the micromobility coordinator for the city.
And Ms. Person.
And I'm B. Person. I am the bicycle and pedestrian outreach coordinator for the city.
Thank you. Ms. Hester.
Liz Hester, I'm on the planning. No, not the planning. I always forget the new name. I'm sorry. The planning committee.
Yeah, we're
That's right. The planning. Sorry.
And Ms. Sell.
Mary Sam on the planning committee.
And Mr. Tong.
Or wait, I think I'm policy. Now I'm confused. Sorry. I'm on a committee.
Okay. We'll get it all sorted out, I'm sure. And Ms. Hatchell.
Hi, Susan Hatchell. I'm on the community outreach committee.
And Mr. Neptune.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Nick Neptune. It's good to be here. I'm with the outreach committee.
And I would like to take a moment and introduce Christina Jones, who is joining us, and she is our new liaison from the Parks and Greenway Advisory Board. And could you take a moment and introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, you did such a good job, Dwight. So my name is Christina Jones. I just joined the Parks Advisory Board back in October, and back in the December meeting, I switched over and I forgot his name, who was the previous liaison. So I asked if I could be. And so I'm really excited to be here, and I'm excited to meet all of you, but I'm especially excited to see Pierre. Hi, Pierre. It's been like a few years since I've seen you, so I'm just excited to see you on the team. Glad to work with you again. I'm glad to work with everyone, and I look forward to hearing everything. Thanks.
Thank you. And we currently have a Greenway liaison, Parks and Greenway Board liaison. This is in response to a request from the City Council that we more closely collaborate on issues around the parks that affect bicycles and pedestrians' access and safety and comfort. And so the hope is that you will see issues that will just, your awareness of the work that we're doing will inform the work you do on the Parks and Greenway Board. And hopefully you will start to see some of the little things that we like to tease out and bring some things from some of your parks presentations and the issues you're dealing with to this table. So please speak up. And if we start speaking jargon, bicycle or pedestrian jargon we tend to throw around, please ask us to slow down, and welcome you to the community.
Thank you. And I actually just finished the committee meeting at 4. We had a meeting at 4 o'clock, so I let them know that I was going to this meeting, and we are looking forward to that collaboration. And I'll let you know when our meetings are, so we can start going to each other's meetings and having a great time.
Excellent. And I believe the minutes are up. Has everybody had a chance to look at the website and check out the minutes? If not, I would ask, let's take 2 minutes and skim through them real quick, please. And we'll take a vote and see if we can move these minutes off the agenda.
I can move to approve if nobody has any amendments.
I'll go ahead and second that. So we will call this to a vote. All in favor of approval of the minutes, please raise your hand. And I'm sorry, Christina, I believe you may raise your hand, but I'm not sure if your vote counts or not. We would love to have your advisory input, though. All right, thank you very much. Next, we will move on to the public comments. And I had heard that some folks might be showing up today. Mr. Lamb, do you know if we have anybody in waiting for public comments?
Yes, sir. I have Paige Dickerhoof in the room.
Excellent. And this is we usually don't limit this to time or topic, so we'll ask for what's the word I'm looking for? Happy speech, decent decorum. We'll get nice decorum, and we'll just happy to engage.
And Paige, you are unmuted if you want to speak.
I have no comments. I just came to join in and listen into this month's events.
Very good.
Thank you for joining us. And Mr. Lamb, that does bring a question to mind that I've been thinking about. Is there a way to discern folks that are just attending in the WebEx application from folks that want to speak as or have questions or something they want to present? I guess it doesn't really matter because we don't have that big of a log jam, but I guess it's not a separate link they would click or something on the website.
There's no way to discern someone who's just a passive attendee versus someone who wants to participate. So what we've done in the past is ask folks to send us, as the host, can send me a message in the chat to let me know what their intent is. I can go from there. So.
Excellent. Well, we had some interactions with some folks from the public, and I know she had considered coming out here today, but we'll probably bring that up in the board comments later today and discuss that issue. All right, moving on then. We next have presentations. We have a couple presentations, and the first one will be the 2021 resurfacings. And Mr. Black, was that, I know that there was a question of whether or not those will be ready for the meeting tonight. Do you report on the status, please?
Yeah, I met with Brandy and Rebecca last week, and they have asked if we can put that on the February agenda. So if we can please just postpone that and put that on for February, they should have everything ready in time for that.
I am okay with that unless anybody has any objections. I believe we can just passively approve it. All right. Let's look forward to seeing that in February. Next up on the agenda is the bike walk friendly status from 2020. And we increased our score or our position last year, I believe, and this person is going to present the findings and lessons learned from that process.
So Eric, do you have a presentation?
Do I have your presentation?
Oh, Paul, sorry. I thought that was something that was, I guess I messed up about that. We have a presentation.
If you'll hang on one second, there's a PowerPoint that's in the content. I can download that.
And so while he is, thank you, while he is downloading that, the basically the bike friendly and walk friendly applications were both due last year. One of them, the bike friendly, is a renewal, and the walk friendly was the first time we had done it. And the bike friendly, we got the same score. And so we're just going to tell you a little summary. In your agenda packet, you should also have the complete report card from the League of American Cyclists and also from the Bike Friendly Communities website. So this is just a brief summary, so you can always, if you want to have more information, you can go and study that and come back if you have any. We are not having any recommendations. It is just purely for us to be able to look at it and decide if you would like to make any recommendations based on what they suggest.
Can everyone see the presentation okay?
So for the bike-friendly community, we were awarded the bronze level status for the second time. And that was a bit of a disappointment because we felt like we had done a lot of structural changes, but they still felt like we had not moved up to the silver level like we had wanted.
But one very slight correction, that was our third time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Bronze. We first achieved bronze in 2011. Sorry. There we go.
Really, there's nothing to be said. Bronze level is still something. There are cities that don't have any level, so we should at least be thankful that we have something. The next one shows, I believe, the different cities in North Carolina and their status as well. There are no silver or gold level bike-friendly communities in North Carolina. Oh, I'm sorry, Carrboro and Chapel Hill.
They're no gold or platinum.
No gold or platinum, and Cary and Charlotte are most similar, are both bronze level as well.
I apologize for interrupting, and this is not part of your presentation. You may not know. Are there gold and platinum level cities in America?
Yes, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, New York and in fact, I think the platinum is a new level. They were getting, they sort of gave everyone a gold and then they introduced the platinum, I believe, to move some people up.
Thank you.
They gave us a 10-point scale, and these are our numbers. Enforcement and education were both the lowest, and they are judging us on 5 different categories. We'll go through and say what they thought about each category. So the ones that we scored, they sort of compared you to other silver cities, and where we did well were Bike Month and advocacy. So good for you meeting monthly. Some silver levels only meet every other month. So the frequencies gave us points. And our bike plan is current and we keep it updated, which they were impressed with. And they liked our ordinances. Those were things that we did well. And the things that we had road improvement was how our speed limit, which we discussed before, and then the ratio between bike lanes to our total network of mileage for vehicles, and the amount of money we don't spend, the amount of staff members we don't have, and the low number of bike commuters. Those were all things that we were below what they felt a silver level would be. And some specific suggestions they had in the report. They are a little bit longer in the report, but here, just increase your bike network, which we are doing, expanding the neighborhood bikeways, which is on the docket for this year, increase the bike parking, especially in relation to our transit stops, doing a better job with safe routes to schools, which is a Wake County program, and develop a Vision Zero program. Those were some specific suggestions they had. They also wanted to improve the enforcement with the law enforcement. That was something they recommended to us. But after this summer's sort of unrest, they have now taken enforcement off of one of their 5 E's, and they're going to now be emphasizing equity. So enforcement is no longer something that we'll have to apply for. And that is the very brief summary of the bike-friendly community. And if you have any questions or comments, we can talk now, and then we will go to the walk-friendly. But open it up for discussion first.
And Mr. Chair, just for reference, you're asking about platinum level communities. According to the website, there are 5. There's Madison, Wisconsin, Boulder, Colorado, Fort Collins, Colorado, Davis, California, and Portland, Oregon.
Okay. I rode once between Boulder and Fort Collins, and it was a scary experience. So maybe you have to be in those places.
B, I've got a question for you about this bike-friendly report card. There's a note here toward the top of the PDF that I've got, at least. The number of local bicycle-friendly businesses in Raleigh is listed as 3. And I'm just curious, how is that defined? How do we come up with 3?
So there are businesses, they actually have to go online and fill out an application and pay a fee to become a bicycle-friendly community. And I think Red Hat is one, and the Humane Society or some sort of pet something. I can't remember the 3. Even the city of Raleigh could apply to become an employer, and we have not done that, but there is a cost associated with it. It's free to us for us to apply to be a community.
But if I hear you correctly, you're saying a business has to pay to be listed and considered bicycle friendly?
Yes.
It's an official designation by the League of American Cyclists.
That you have to pay for?
Yeah.
I don't remember the cost. I think it's based on the number of employees you have. So if you're a small bike shop, maybe it wouldn't be cost prohibitive, but maybe there's not a perceived benefit.
Yeah.
I think it's serious that you have to pay to be designated bike friendly. That seems a odd procedure.
Nick, I think because the league's nonprofit, I think it's just to cover their cost to review your application. But really what they're doing is they're looking at, if you're a big employer, are you providing things like indoor bike storage for your workers? What kind of bike racks do you have? Do you have bicycle-friendly policies dealing with weather and things like that? But it's not a tremendous cost. Again, it's more to cover the administrative cost of the league itself.
It would be interesting to know what that is, because I think, this is a perfect forum. And one of the reasons I wanted these 2 report cards talked about this evening is that I think there's a lot of great information and data for us here. But I also think this is an opportunity for us to realize, that if there's a way we could encourage businesses to do this, I think that's I own a business. I'd be willing to do it if I knew more about it. So I think, just kind of making sure people understand that this is an important part of trying to grow a bicycle-friendly network and community.
The range on the website, the range on their website for the fees is $50 to $500. So so that's the.
And Liz, is that yearly?
Quick answer to that question. I think
is it a yearly thing or a one-time cost?
Looks like a one-time cost. But,
okay, well, I'll join the group.
No, I take that back. It says scheduled 4-year renewals, so it's every 4 years.
Well,
and there's discounts for women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses. So apparently, I'm literally just reading their website. So
good. Well, thank you.
I believe
I was curious too how much it would cost.
For some time now, if we could let her jump in, please.
I guess my question was pertaining to equity. I'd be curious. I love that that's a new E for them. I wonder, did they give us specific guidance on how to incorporate equity? Maybe we could provide feedback that a way to incorporate equity after this discussion could be removal of their fee if feasible for consideration to be a bicycle-friendly business. And then my only other feedback after hearing this discussion is we also ranked really low on education. So I would guess a lot of businesses don't have access or information about how to even apply to be a bicycle-friendly business. So that's probably something that we could accelerate if we had capacity to do so. But B, specifically, did we get information or feedback on how we can proactively incorporate equity if that is a new E?
It's technically not a new E because I went and downloaded the new application. They do it every 6 months. They open up an application and they didn't have it yet. I think it was just in the midst of this summer. It was one of their policies that they decided we want to be part of a positive change in our culture, and we feel like the police enforcement part with bikes. They recognize the equity and bikes and police. They just sort of saw that as they're still working through it. But I do think equity and education will go hand in hand. Where are we doing education in low income areas, and are we providing equitable services? But at this point, they haven't announced that. It hasn't been an official E. They were just sort of, we're going to shift everything. Enforcement's still going to be part of some of the questions, but it's just going to be rephrased.
I believe Ms. Hester has her hand up. I don't think I can see everybody at once, so also if I ignore you, please shout.
Yeah, so just along that, kind of what Nick pointed out, we have one university that's also applied for this, and just curious, would it be worth reaching out to some of the others, because we have such a rich university system? And in particular, St. Augustine's just started the first historically Black college university cycling team, so they might be a really low-hanging fruit to just kind of up that number.
And I think that I will put it on my personal to-do list to contact the universities. The problem is it's sort of a tedious application. So who do you get that's going to take the time to get all the numbers from different people? So you sort of have to find the right person. If you know anyone, please let me know. And it was.
Yeah, I might recommend just starting with the cycling clubs. So I know NC State has one, and obviously the one at St. Augustine's I just mentioned, because they might be willing to sort of spearhead at least gathering the information to do it, even though the university probably has to submit it, but they have faculty sponsors.
And Ms. Hatchell. I believe you are still on mute. You're still, Ms. Hatchell, you're still muted.
Dang. Sorry about that. I was just saying that a lot of universities and businesses pay a lot of money to be LEED certified or other certifications that go for green building things. And part of that is providing good bicycle parking, providing showers for employees and things like that. So I think it'd be really interesting to kind of think, and maybe this is something that a community outreach, I don't know how busy we are, but maybe we should be really looking at which major businesses in the triangle, well, not triangle, the Raleigh, we don't care about the triangle, we care about Raleigh, but which major groups are spending time and money and resources to become, LEED certified green type of building. Because I think if they're willing to pay for that certification, they'd probably be willing to pay for this. It's something to put on their website for attracting employees. They might already have they might have everything they need to qualify.
And we definitely have our Go Raleigh staff have contacts at a lot of businesses, so we can put that on our docket with our monthly meeting with them and see if they can reach out to and start that discussion.
All right, I'm flipping through. Does anybody else have any comments? So I believe the purpose of having this presentation and discussion, the award itself is good for the public image of the city, and it helps us focus our goals. But I think that the purpose of having it here is to help us understand the areas where, according to these measures, we are falling short and where we've been successful. So I thank you for the presentation, Mr.
Eric.
I believe Mr. Parrish has some comments.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've been having problems, but I'm here now. I have a question for our guest. I'm concerned that the fine is sort of a rubber stamp as far as being a bike-friendly company. Is that the case, or do companies have to have certain standards to really be considered? It's sort of like, in my mind, somebody getting something from Better Business View, the BBB. You have to pay for it too, or it's kind of like getting people giving stars for for a company's apps. Is it really something that's legit? Or, you know,
It's legit. I mean, it's the league of, I mean, the league is, I guess, like the national entity that does this. I mean, I hear people's feedback. Sorry to, I mean, staff can provide a response too. This is Mary Robert. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah,
I think we
it's
should dig in a little bit more because if there are, it sounds like they'd make an, equity. They're trying to incorporate that with the scholarships for women-owned, or it's the only national organization that takes the initiative to score folks like nationally. So I think it's worthwhile.
okay.
It's
So
all
they have
about,
to meet standards then.
yeah.
Okay.
But
That's all I was wondering.
your answer. Sorry, staff. I got excited.
And I think another benefit for the business is then it gives them opportunity, it gives them feedback and saying, oh, well, maybe I never considered that I need to have a shower so someone can shower at work. And it allows them to sort of consider some things for the bike businesses.
Okay.
Ms. Sell?
Just because it's my past world, I'm curious, does the TDM staff like Jana and Ann, do they help y'all complete this application since they work with the businesses that would be able to help inform that?
For the bike-friendly community application, everyone helped. I mean, the city of Raleigh, every department had to give information for this.
Okay.
And the TDM staff I think they don't mind. They would be willing to help contact the businesses and request that. We have not done that before.
Okay, because the other thing is, it was just because it was the program I used to implement. The Best Workplaces for Commuters is a national recognition program that quantifies a lot of different commuter benefits, but one of them is bicycle. It looks at transit, bicycle, but they would have data and information they could post with that, Jana and Ann. I think there were like 26 businesses in the triangle that participated in the Best Workplaces for Commuters, so probably all of those it'd be more than 3.
Right.
But they may have not sought out bicycle-friendly designation.
Right. We have never pursued trying to get businesses to do that, or since I've been here.
I know it's just one component of the application too, so.
So I think we've covered bike-friendly community. B, you want to talk about the walk-friendly community designation?
Yes, the walk-friendly one is a bit longer too. So we received a silver level designation. It's the first time we filled out the application. And I personally was very pleased. It was exciting that we got higher than bronze. And we were recognized for a lot of our policies. Their report card is quite detailed, so we're going to breeze through it right now. But if something on here is of interest, I would encourage you to go to that agenda packet and read the entire thing, because there are a lot more details in it. So we are in the same case with Cary and Charlotte and Raleigh and Asheville are all silver levels. There are no gold levels in North Carolina, but Washington, D.C. and Charlottesville, Virginia are both gold level cities, just for comparison. On the right track means the things that we need to do better. Status of walking, education. They had the same 5 E's. What we were okay with was planning and engineering. So we had more things that needed an improvement and 2 things that were satisfactory. Status of walking recommendations. This is where we are right now. They recommended that we have a separate pedestrian advisory commission instead of just a combined bicycle and pedestrian. They also staff members to consider improvements where minor, so consider different crash points and what we could do better with that. Planning recommendations. This was their planning section of the application. They suggested we update the pedestrian master plan, Vision Zero again, improve our transit and peak headways and the neighborhood access. They also encouraged us to make our parking policies to make sure that we were reducing vehicle trips. They felt like if where you made your parking and encourage people to walk more. And then at the bottom, one of our strengths, they really thought our UDO, our Unified Development Ordinance, and our regular updates was a strength of the city. They recommended for education to, again, Smart Routes to School, which is a Wake County program, but to continue to work with them and encourage them, host an open streets event, which probably won't happen this year, and clarify role with Watch for Me NC, which is a DOT program. The engineering recommendations: improve the pedestrian safety at intersections and the right turn on red restrictions, conduct inventory of sidewalks and curb ramps. And then again, one thing, the green, what they liked, the microgap and sidewalk pedestrian programs, they felt were excellent examples that will be recommended to future walk-friendly community applicants. So that's sort of a kudos to the city of Raleigh. That was something that really boosted us up.
And for the commission's benefit, the second bullet in terms of conducting an inventory for sidewalks and curb ramps, we actually just had a contract approved by the city council last week to do exactly that. That would be a citywide evaluation of all of the city's sidewalks for condition and needs for improvements.
Enforcement recommendations: consider pedestrian crossing enforcement operations. Automated enforcement is a very effective countermeasure. So it's good to see that Raleigh is expanding the red light camera programs. And then it said, consider locations with crash problems and high pedestrian volumes. Evaluation. Raleigh's permanent counters are the building block, but then they gave us a lot of information on how we could make sure we use the counting program. They were like, it's great to have counters, but how are you going to use them? What are you going to do with them? So they really want us to continue that. And what type of evaluations will be conducted. If we had a GIS professional and she left and we were having some staffing. So I'm not sure, Eric I'm not sure where we are in that status right now anyway. Oh, it should say walk friendly community questions. I did not change that. So that was a very, very brief overview. The report they have is quite long and detailed, but they were impressed with us. So if there's any comments or questions, we'd love to have them now.
Ms. Hatchell.
Yeah, oh, thank you so much for the presentation and for all the work that went into putting this together. I think it really is, it's great that we're maintaining our bronze, and I think it's great that our first time out we got silver. I guess my question is, yeah, why is that? I mean, what can we do to get that bike one a little bit elevated, since we right out of the box were able to do well with the other. So it seems like it's about budget, it's about staff numbers, and it's about bicycle miles traveled. Because it looked like it seems a little contradictory to me, because they didn't seem to be too upset with the number of facilities we had. They're upset that people aren't using they're not using the community miles.
It's also two different organizations evaluating us. So what they value, I think what each one does, they give it to their experts, and their experts sort of come up with the answers. The Walk Friendly Community Program is a lot newer. It's not as old. And like the Bike Friendly, their 6 month, they just announced recently, they had like 55 organizations that they had evaluated, either new or incoming. And I think they just that's why our report card it's more cursory, because they don't have as many people applying for it. And
so who gives the Walk Friendly?
It's an organization called Walk Friendly Communities, and they're actually in Chapel Hill. I think they're sponsored by FedEx.
It's part of the UNC Highway Safety Research Center.
Ah, okay. Well, like I said, I think I asked when B had presented this information, we'd had some conversations in the community outreach group, and I think it's great information. I think there's a lot of data. It's very data rich. And I think it does speak a lot to maybe how we could be helping and a lot of things we're trying to do already, with the Vision Zero and the intersections improvements. And a lot of these things are things we're working on. We're just, maybe not as snappy and quick as we wish we could be sometimes. But I think, realizing how we compare to other communities, and then how we compare, for instance, other city departments in terms of, particularly staffing perhaps and budget, and and I guess, I don't see that's going to change, but I wonder, what we could be as, I'm not saying I think staff should do more. I guess what I'm saying is what could we do more, or what could we be talking about or helping do that gets this information out, and how, particularly when you do consider almost every single meeting, we spend a lot of time talking about the number of crashes and deaths, particularly in the pedestrian realm, but also in the bicycle realm. So I think, this is an important way to think about somebody else is telling us what's wrong. So what can we do? And they're also telling us what's right, which is great.
Eric, I have a question for our guest.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I came in late, as I said. What was your name? I'm sorry.
My name is B. Person, and I'm a part-time staff employee working with Eric and Paul. But I am a guest because I don't normally present.
I've heard of you before, I think, so somewhere. Yeah. Ms. Person, does the walk-friendly evaluation have anything to do with the scoring systems of sidewalks? I mean, so far as future planning, is that related to the designation of the categories?
No, it's an outside organization that's just grading up. We fill out an application, and then they tell us what they think based on what we said. And then our sidewalk evaluation is a separate internal process.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Mr. Lamb, I believe you're muted.
I'm sorry, Mr. Parrish. I was going to say that part of what we're evaluated on is how many miles of sidewalk we have, our commitment to building new sidewalk and improving that. So that is part of our evaluation criteria for this program.
Well, yeah, I get it from the city, but I was relating it to what she was saying. Is that a part of it? Seeing what cities are attempting to do.
One thing that strikes me from watching these presentations is that our planning department and our engineering and our staff is doing a great job at the things that this organization has identified as things for the transportation planning department to do. Like, I think we are doing a good job, and this commission takes a good job at identifying the issues and bringing them to the right folks. I think we do help, but I get frustrated that I believe that we are set up to, like, this is not a pinch point. And so we spend all this time talking to the transportation staff and asking them to spend their time on these things. And they're really doing good work and moving this forward. I do value the collaboration that we have together. I believe that these reports miss a lot of things like zoning and larger transportation issues and sprawl numbers that really hugely affect how walkable the city is, that are outside the purview of the transportation planning department. And so, like, it seems like that's where we're hurting. Raleigh is one of the most sprawliest cities by measure in the country. So we could have a ton of capacity in our planning department pumping bike lanes out, and it would still be hard. So these are structural issues that I think that it's helpful for me to realize that the folks that we're interacting with here, like, I view my role more as helping to facilitate your work here than, hey, didn't you guys know about this issue? Like, it feels very arrogant to me sometimes for us to even bring things forward to the staff here. So I guess I'm taking this opportunity to say thank you guys for doing such a wonderful job. If they had like the medals for like how the planning staff approaches this, you guys would be getting silvers and golds. So it's the city as a whole that we have to figure out how to move those larger issues.
Well, thank you. I want to take just a moment and say a special thank you to Bea, because she was our superhero when filling out all of these applications and pulling that information together. And I think that part of why we got the ranking that we did from walk-friendly communities is because of how well of an application she wrote. So thank you, Bea.
Yeah, and I took it. I got the application that Tron had started And during my little honeymoon period, I tried to get through it, and I think I made it about a third of the way and was like, this is too much. So
Yeah.
really, he did an amazing job pulling this together. The statistics that we had to pull together, the different departments, and you know, getting the police department in, this was a big undertaking. And I think that the application actually does start to get at some of those land use issues too. Things like the questions about parking, particularly on the rock side. I think they're trying to get at it. Whether we're doing stuff or not, I don't know. But with some of the transit and parking things that they tried to address, they're coming at it indirectly.
Yeah.
So it's there. We don't score that great. In fact, one of the recommendations was, you know, we need to do better with some of our parking stuff.
And I want to say that, you know, the city of Raleigh, I had been working here 2 months and I got this assignment, and the number of staff members I had a contact, and everyone was very responsive and very helpful. And so I think that, you know, that says a lot about an organization when someone that they don't know contacts them and I say, I need this number. Now, sometimes I had to remind them I still needed the number because it becomes less of a priority. But and these type applications, they probably have dozens of them for the city. So it does speak well that people responded and got all the information, and I think it's pretty accurate. And I think it's interesting when it comes back, and I hope that we continue to get silver next time for bikes. So.
All right. Well, if there's no further questions or anything that staff needs from us here, we can move on to the next item on the agenda. And it's 7 p.m. I think we're moving through this pretty quickly. How do you guys feel about a break? Like, should we take a break, or should we break, or just pump it out, get it done? Everybody's saying get it done, get it done. All right, let's get it done. So next up is the work plan for 2021, and it's back on us so soon. We were late getting our work plan in last year for very acceptable excuses, but that means that we're going to have a short term this last period, and it's time for us to look at where we are and start thinking about what our work plan is for next year. Does everybody have access to the work plan? Or Mr. Lamb, can you bring the link up online so we can discuss it together?
And it's also posted in board docs. I did that while we were doing the previous thing. I apologize for missing a couple of the attachments. Just for folks who don't know, I had some knee surgery right before Christmas, and with the shortened schedule, when I was posting all this up last week, I was still maybe a little bit loopy. So I missed a few things. Sorry about that.
Let me know if you have any problems with that link I just posted in the chat. If you want to pull up individually, I'll also share it on the screen here in just 1 second.
So last year we kind of switched up the work plan and switched up the committees. So I'll go over the general and commission initiatives real quickly. And then I was hoping that each of the committee chairs could check in real quick and just have a brief discussion about how you think the work plan has functioned for you, for your committee, if you've been able to take the items on it and be productive. If there's things that you want to be doing that are not on that plan, or if something needs to be dropped or added, and then we can have a general discussion about it. And I believe this is just the beginning of our discussions. Mr. Lamb, we have a few months to pull this together.
Yes, sir. Typically our work plan for the commission runs with the fiscal year. And so that's for the city of Raleigh, that's from July to June.
So this is not imminent, and we don't have to change it next month, but it's time to start thinking about how well we've worked with our plan so far and what it needs to change. Has everybody been able to open one of those links? Yeah, everybody's pretty familiar with it. All right, I'm going to just breeze through the general commission initiatives. I think that we've been doing a good job with the public. I think we should continue in that role, taking their comments. I don't see the need to change what we're doing there. With the caveat that perhaps we ought to be seeking input from some of the communities that are not likely to show up at our meetings. The next one is just a general policy statement, and it's I think it's best to leave as it is, as hard as a specific actionable item, but I believe it has its place. The third item is becoming educated. That's what we are doing by seeing these presentations and hearing these statistics, and I think it's a vital role, and we can't make good advisory recommendations without having a firm understanding of what the city's doing. So I believe that is appropriate, and I don't have any need to change that. Reports, this is just to cover us because this is a bulk of what we do, is get reports from staff and give them recommendations and feedback as they see fit to the request and as we see fit to deliver. Review and provide formal recommendations on the city's Greenway System Master Plan update. And we got a report last month. And when the time comes, we will be issuing recommendations. So I think that is valid and current and should remain as it is. And collaborate with the city's Parks and Rec and Greenway Board to improve safety on the Greenway system. And we have taken the next step in our setting up the system to do that with having Ms. Jones on the call tonight. So I don't have any discussion for the general topics. If anybody has any comments, I would love to hear them. Can't see everybody at once, so just go ahead and speak out, and doesn't look like everybody's rushing to comment on this one.
I think the one thing that I'll point out is on this very last one. These last two bullets were added by the city council when it was presented. And I believe that there's an expectation on the last bullet that there would be some set of formal recommendations that come from the commission, whether jointly or in parallel with Parks Rec Greenway Advisory Board. We have met with our colleagues in Parks and Recreation to determine what recent initiatives they have put together to look at improving safety. I think that it would be in order at a future commission meeting to review those with the commission and see what other items need to be part of a formal recommendation back to the city council.
I look forward to hearing that presentation, and hopefully Ms. Jones will keep us updated in the interim on the progress.
Definitely, and that was something that we talked about at our last meeting, was safety and wanting to get just opinions, and I told them that I would definitely listen to what you guys were talking about. I know that Dwight and I briefly discussed that on the phone, so I'd be very interested to hear so that I can pass that along to them.
And that's something that I don't believe necessarily belongs in any one committee. So if anybody has any ideas about that now, we can toss around. This is going to be we don't have a stacked agenda. Now's a good time to have some discussions. But if not, we can move on to the outreach committee. Let's go with Ms. Hester.
Well, if we're going to talk about greenway safety, I mean, I guess, Eric, was your point that we're going to have someone come and do a presentation on the current state, and then we would make recommendations? So, like, I guess I don't really know we can have a discussion without having seen sort of where we are now. Otherwise, I have some opinions about it, like lighting and, clearance around greenway trails, but that's different than what's actually going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. I can tell you from a staff perspective, what I tell the staff on the Parks and Rec side that we're hearing mostly from the bike community, but also from the pedestrian community, is the bike pad conflict. That's nothing new to Parks and Rec, and that continues to be an ongoing issue everywhere, not just in Raleigh. But for bikes specifically, yeah, it's the use of greenways after sunset for commuters, particularly this time of year. And then that's lighting and some striping potentially are the issues on the transportation side that we're seeing. And the other one is, like you're saying, the curb cuts and ramps so that bikes can exit the greenway onto the street, and the bollards at the entrances to the greenways can be an issue for bikes. There's probably some others, but those are the ones that I've communicated to staff.
Yeah, and particularly thinking about commuters, it may be worth it as part of this conversation, not right now, but to think about how we can show people safe routes around the greenway. Like if, for example, like you're going through Meredith and they close it from, dawn or dusk, they close it after dusk. So you could potentially get stuck somewhere you don't know how to get around. So it might just be just another thing to think about, like how do we show people safe routes around that kind of thing.
So I think that it's important for us to have a discussion about like what we can proactively do as the Parks Department and to impact the conflict safety. We had an issue come up earlier this week that brought to mind the issues of like development planning and site review with respect to the greenways, because we have a development that's going in that will add a significant amount of traffic to a greenway crossing, an at-grade greenway crossing. And this is also a safety issue. We have identified issues with, if there's problem crossings, how do we mitigate those with hawk signals or with making a plan for grade separated crossings? But are we considering what's going on with site review, rezoning, and plan developments and stuff, and how they will impact specifically not just the pedestrian, but the greenway issues? All right. And so unless anybody has anything else about the general initiatives, I am going to throw all the committee chairs under the bus because they didn't know this was coming. And hopefully everybody can have a little discussion about what's been going on in their committee. We'll let this also take the place of committee reports, so we'll roll through that real quick. But just take a quick look at the points on the agenda that correspond to your committee and give some just initial feedback about what's been working or what's missing. And Nick, can I ask you to start?
Yes, Mr. Otwell, happy to kick us off. So Outreach Committee has 4 distinct initiatives. I'll kind of run through each of these and make a comment, a brief comment on them. The first one is to review BPAC procedures for selecting, discussing, prioritizing commission business, and provide recommendations to improve equity in commission operations. I think the question that comes to mind for this specific item is, obviously the BPAC procedures for selecting, discussing, and prioritizing commission business. This, to me, is a question really for Eric, for Dwight. How does that happen? I mean, I've been on the commission for over a year now, and I don't exactly know that process that's involved. So I think this is a question that we can answer perhaps in a separate meeting with Outreach. I guess I think we have a meeting coming up this Wednesday. But, I don't think we have to, belabor this right now, but that could be a separate sort of, again, meeting between us with Outreach, Susan Kelly and myself and Dwight and Eric to sort of, hash it out. How exactly does BPAC, how does its agenda come together? Maybe Paul should be involved with that potentially. But that's my initial thought on that particular item.
Mr. Neptune, if you don't mind me jumping in there, I would like to get the feeling of the rest of the commission about, I pushed for this item under this committee because I feel like the agenda comes about largely as a result of what the professional needs for Mr. Lamb and Mr. Black and the planning department, and the items that just kind of filter to the surface on this commission, like the things that we become aware of that are important to us. And so I guess what are our blind sides? Like is there some way to set up a system that can seek out issues that are outside of the flashlight we're currently shining? And I don't know if this is a fool's errand, if this is something that's above our pay grade, perhaps. As we start talking about all this equity stuff, the city is also wrestling with how do they balance equity. So is this something we just need to park it and wait? Does this need to come off the agenda for now? I would like to, I push for this, and I'm not certain that it needs to stay here. So I'd like to hear what people have to say.
Well, I'd love to hear from Mr. Lamb or Mr. Black from staff what their thoughts are, because again, I don't even really know how stuff just lands on the agenda. We get an agenda, we discuss it, we move through it, and we move on. But other than that, I think that the idea of having agenda items that are rooted in equity and inclusion and et cetera, that's a great idea. And again, we don't necessarily have to get into it right now with this particular meeting. We could have a separate meeting to talk about it, but I don't even know how the agenda is set up and formed for us to launch with, from month to month to month. So that will certainly be helpful to start.
I think fundamentally the agenda is driven by the work plan and by the the responsibilities of the commission as laid out in the bylaws that were set for establishing the commission. And so staff brings to the chair and vice chair on a monthly basis, looking at what does the radar look like for things that are requiring review and feedback from the commission based on that. The other wild card is any other items the city council directs to be addressed by the commission. So ultimately the commission serves at the pleasure of the city council. The city council directs the work of the commission primarily through the work plan, but on a periodic basis as things come to the table, the council delegates that activity to the commission to consider. So that's where things come from. With the work plan specifically, having laid out elements that are within the work plan, that creates the impetus to generate the materials and the backup for consideration for each of these items. So the outreach committee, for example, has already been assigned these 4 bullets to work on directly, in addition to any other items that the commission as a whole may choose to delegate to any one committee, if that makes sense.
It does, and I think, in brief, it sounds like staff meets with the chair and the vice chair to discuss what's going to go in the agenda, and we effectively take it from there. So,
And there's a backup step. So there are things that are laid out that are sort of Eric hit it at the 60,000 foot, sort of down on the boots on the ground. I deal with the things that are coming in that meet those requirements. So I'll get a call from planning that says, we've got a small area plan that is at a certain point and we need BPAC to look at it and comment. We get the same thing from engineering services about specific projects. We're at 65%. We want BPAC to look at it and comment. So I'm getting those that are coming in, and as they come in, I try to make sure that we've got a balanced workload so we don't end up with 5 or 6 of them on a single agenda. So there's a little bit of gatekeeping that goes on with that. And every once in a while, we get lucky and have a month like this where we get to delve into some of these deeper issues that aren't being driven by some other deadline that, we've got BPAC has to see it before it goes to council or before it goes back out to the public or whatever that might be. So there's sort of that low-level part of the little pieces that go into this bigger vision as well.
Paul, that's very helpful, and I appreciate it. I think that, ultimately, again, it sort of cycles back to the chair and the vice chair while meeting with staff and sort of, coming up with the agenda for the, coming month, to sort of take the extra step to identify on the agenda, are we having conversations rooted, not kind of sort of outside of just infrastructure and planning and policy and this and that and the other, is a part of our conversation in the month ahead. Well, we'll be actively engaged in a dialogue around people, human beings, and the impact on populations that historically have been underserved and neglected. I think that if I'm hearing it correctly, at the end of the day, there's an opportunity for the chair and the vice chair to take a look at the agenda and to say, what's missing from this conversation for this coming month? An active conversation rooted in underserved populations. So maybe we can find a way to take the extra effort to inject that in there, if it seems to make sense. I know that from an outreach standpoint, one of our other agenda items was to select topics and give presentations and lead commission discussions on issues pertaining to equity and governance and community engagement. And so as a part of that effort, we connected with the City Council's community engagement consultant, Mickey Fern, and had him come through and speak and share with us sort of kind of an update on where he is in working with the city and working with the community to try to define what community engagement sort of process and procedure would look like moving forward, but in the context of obviously everything that, I think not only our community, but communities across the country are trying to, address. But ultimately, in brief, it sounds like as far as this first item is concerned, if it really is just a matter, if you sort of strip away all the layers and the complexities of it, you've got staff meeting with the chair and the vice chair. And it sounds like the chair and the vice chair have the first opportunity to observe, well, you know what, maybe we could inject this into the agenda for this coming month so that we're actively, sort of, proactively engaged in a dialogue around, again, historically underserved and neglected communities in our backyard.
Absolutely. And that is consistent with the fourth bullet here under the outreach committee in terms of selecting topics on issues. And that's the thing that we're always going to ask the commission, tie any directives and inquiries back to is it consistent with the work plan, and is it consistent with the powers that are established in the bylaws?
Okay. Is there a comment?
Just Susan here. I was just going to say, I mean, quite frankly, we've not had an opportunity as the outreach committee, and we're fairly new. We've never had an opportunity to talk about this work plan. So I guess I don't know that I'm certainly not ready. And Nick, you're the chair, so I wouldn't step on your toes anyway, but I'm certainly not ready to say that we should keep or discard or add anything until, as a subcommittee, we've had an opportunity to go through this and think about what's realistic and what's there. I was asked to be on this committee after this was made. I didn't have anything to do with even creating this list because I was on another committee. So I guess I would really love to kind of step back and let the subcommittee kind of have the conversation about these 4 bullets before we try to decide anything.
Susan, I don't disagree, and I think that just to be very clear about at least what I'm doing right now, I'm just sort of going through these items per the request of the chair and making a comment on them. But I'm not suggesting one way or the other that they should either be stricken or affirmed. I think it's a great idea for outreach to get together and go through these items one by one and then maybe come back with a recommendation. Yes.
To be clear, Ms. Hatchell, I don't intend to begin editing this document at this time. This is just let everybody know where all the committees are at and maybe start some ideas about what's working and what's not working, and to introduce Ms. Jones to the work of the commission and let her know what we've been up to.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess my concern is we've gotten sort of bogged down in bullet 1 on the first group.
I'm sorry. I got all ahead of myself because of my insecurity about that point. But yes, we should move on.
Well, I guess moving forward, I would just say in brief, the remaining 3 points for outreach includes to study city departments, boards, commissions, private advocacy, and business groups to determine areas of shared interest and develop formalized relationships to foster cross-awareness and collaboration. The third point is to create periodic reports to update district council members on pedestrian and bicycle issues within their districts. And the fourth and final point is select topics, give presentations, and lead commission discussions on issues pertaining to equity and governance and community engagement. As I shared earlier, certainly we've reached out to Mickey Fern. He was able to meet with us back in October, November to discuss his work on community engagement, and especially in the context of what we do through BPAC. In terms of creating these periodic reports, that seems like a question for staff potentially. And then finally, this whole notion of studying the city departments and et cetera. I mean, that's obviously something we can still do, and there's, I think, plenty of time to do it, and then to pivot from there and sort of create a game plan. But either way, I think to Ms. Hatchell's point, I think that outreach getting together to sort of review these and kind of coming up with an action plan for what remains of this year, sounds like a good way to proceed. Again, I'm not, here to suggest one way or the other that items should be stricken or affirmed either way.
Thank you, Mr. Neptune. Are there any questions or comments? I think that, Ms. Alley.
Thank you. I wanted to circle back to the agenda setting, and it kind of goes to all of these points. I like what you said about kind of for the flattening, and a lot of our agenda items are driven by what staff needs to bring to us in terms of capital projects or planning projects. And I hope that we can all agree that we have work to do on equitable attention giving to all areas of the city that, our small area planning work and our road project work is not always distributed in an equitable fashion because of squeaky wheels and biases and all manner of things. So an example would be like, what if we heard from the police on a monthly basis? We had a standing item, just like CAC's had crime reports. What if we heard about bike ped accidents on a monthly basis, right? Get it back to the people, like you said, Nick. And what if we collaborated with the police department or with transportation department to break those down, on a monthly or quarterly basis for our council members so that they can see that, it's not just about bronze and silver and planning and future. This is people's lives are being lost right now.
I'd just like to say, I love that.
An idea.
I love that idea, Miss Sally. I really do.
Thanks.
Just as a, kind of a means to get the ball rolling. I think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, it's hard because what we're trying to do is identify our blind spots, and they're blind spots, right? Those are hard things to see. So just, I would hope that would be something that you and your skill sets and passions and your committee could kind of have that broader conversation about, what is it we're missing here?
Yeah. Well, and I think to Ms. Hatchell's point, we haven't really, just to be fair to everybody involved with this process, COVID has not been terribly helpful in just getting together and having, productive conversations. And so, I think, again, back to Ms. Hatchell's earlier point, it'd be nice just for outreach to dedicate our next meeting to kind of going through these bullet points and reflecting on each one and what we can do. And but just, I will say this evening, although I certainly was trying to avoid spending 30 minutes on one item, I do appreciate the discussion we've had this far, and it's been helpful just to learn of at least the beginnings of the process in terms of how the agenda's set. But like, this would be helpful to have in a separate conversation. It's like this whole dialogue would be helpful to have separately from a full-blown commission meeting. We don't have to bog down everybody and the general public in the weeds of these sort of details. But I do think it's important, and I guess I would just say personally, as a citizen of the city, I would push and encourage for this conversation around equity and inclusion in our agenda and what we set out to do. That I absolutely want that to continue to be included in what we do and what we say. Okay, so I'm certainly here for it, and look forward to working with the rest of the commission and seeing that through. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Neptune. I look forward to that discussion. If there are no more questions for that topic, I think we can move on to the Planning Committee. If Mr. Tong could take a moment to discuss your committee's bullet points. And I will point out for Ms. Jones, for context, this is one of the new committees. Last year we had a outreach committee and a bicycle and then a separate pedestrian committee. This year we have gotten rid of the bicycle and the pedestrian committees and reformed them as a planning and a policy committee so that they can be more holistic in their discussions, which made me gave me pause, Ms. Person, when your recommendation coming from the advocacy group saying that we should have our separate out our pedestrian discussion. So I thought that might be an interesting topic for us to pick up in the future. But anyway, sorry, enough introduction. Mr. Tong.
Okay, so to summarize the 2 bullet points that we have for the Planning Committee right now, the Planning Committee is tasked to review key Raleigh transportation capital projects and to review city planning documents and to provide feedback to staff and city council in the form of votes and written comments. The 2 items that I had questions about, the first, that we talked a little bit about this in the planning meeting today, but in addition to stuff that Paul brings us, which he's been doing a good job of doing that, we would like to be able to provide input on the the development process, whether rezonings or plan developments and bicycle and pedestrian issues related to that. And I would be curious if anyone has any ideas on how we could do that. And I also see that we are supposed to provide commentary for city council, and that's not something that we have done currently. So is there any feedback on whether that should remain in the work plan?
I will say that we do provide feedback to council because this policy, this planning committee was set up to take the routine work of the planning projects the staff brings forward and then providing recommendations. And those recommendations do make it back to council in the forms of the committee will make recommendations to the commission, which then votes, and those votes get to council. And the work that sometimes goes straight back through the staff and gets included in the project notes and gets to council. So we might not have been writing reports and sending them to our favorite counselors, but they have been getting our feedback there. Yeah, and the to your point about wanting to step outside of the transportation planning just a little bit, it's that's one of the things that the first point we spoke so much about for outreach committee. How do we set the agenda? And like I spoke about with the walk friendly and our new designations, like the planning staff is doing great. I see a lot of issues elsewhere that I would hope to have an impact on, like the sidewalks that get closed every time that there's a road project or a utilities project. And there's a lot of operations issues, and there's a lot of other stuff that's important to bicycle and pedestrian issues in the city besides the important work that planning is doing. How do we step outside of that paradigm to begin to discuss those topics? And I think that it's going to be a heavy lift on our part to get started, because staff can only bring us what staff knows about, and we can't ask them to go out and figure out what everybody else in the city is doing. So we need to identify some of the things that we want to bring in front of us.
Yep, definitely agree with that.
Mr. Tom, to your question about development review, that has come up over time, a number of instances with the commission. That's one of those items that the city council has not delegated to the commission. Again, the city council sets the work plan and the scope of responsibilities. So providing input on specific development projects has not been sent from the city council to the commission. Where the commission has gotten involved is in terms of looking at policy around development, things like the code, comprehensive plan, et cetera, and things that affect the outcomes of what those individual developments are.
All right. And we will continue this discussion in the planning committee, of course. Are there any more comments? Ms. Alley, Vice Chair Alley.
Just a brief one to this point about development review. I think it's worth a reminder that Raleigh's UDO has administrative approvals. And so that means that once a site plan comes in, they don't go to planning commission or city council for approval as they did under our prior code regime. And so rezoning and then, making sure that your rules are right in the form of UDO text changes really is like our critical if we're going to get this stuff right. Because once a site plan's been filed, while we might be able to influence some changes, there's really no recourse, and not just for us, but for the planning commission and council as well. So something to keep in mind.
All right, so that I'll bring it up in the chair's report, but this is bringing very specifically to mind the project that we were talking about earlier this week, which is an administrative site review of an area that's been recently rezoned, which will have some impacts. And I think that we can have a discussion about how the city responds to those impacts without trying to take any kind of ownership or have a say in what happens in an internal site review. But perhaps we could make recommendations for mitigations to make the Greenway Trail safer up and downstream. Being aware and looking at that kind of stuff is something that I think we need to be involved in, whether or not I don't think it should be our role to get political up in the middle of zoning, but we need to be aware of what's going on. All right, moving on to the policy committee. Vice Chair Alley, could you give us a rundown, please?
Sure. So our work, it's hard to remember 6 months ago, really. But our work as of late has focused on reviewing the sidewalk petition program and city operations, and I guess where policy comes from for intersection markings and signals. And so that's taken a good chunk of time, and we don't necessarily have resolution on either, but I think they've been really fruitful conversations, if for nothing else for our own education about how policy and decisions are made at the staff level. So that's been really fruitful, and I hope we'll continue doing that. I know that there is an item on our committee's agenda to liaise with staff around, you're about to get a cat in the camera, sorry. Liaise, excuse me, around the Vision Zero process. So we need to keep that on the agenda. It's my understanding staff has a contract now to start collecting data that could inform a future Vision Zero effort. So hope we can play an active role in that, because it's pretty important, as noted in, I think, both the bike and ped city reports that we reviewed earlier with B. There was one other thing on there. Oh, I think keeping an eye on other commissions are doing around things like text changes, et cetera. I think we have room for improvement there, but I think it's really important. So that would be things like site plan standards, parking standards, land use decisions. I mean, as you noted, Dwight, so much more than just sidewalk and bike lane policy goes into whether or not a city is walkable or bikeable. So another, I think, item room for improvement is making sure that this commission is, or this committee is hitting all of the needs of cyclists. Because that is certainly, while I do ride a bike, I feel like there are folks that are much more knowledgeable about that on the commission. So making sure that we don't have any blind spots there. And that is all I've got for our commission. Happy to take any questions, or if there are any suggestions for additional work program items. I think there's lots to do, especially when we start getting into the things that might be covered in a Vision Zero initiative, like 20 is plenty, or when we use LPIs, things like that.
It does not look like anybody has any questions. Checking in with Mr. Parrish, make sure you don't have any input to give. Thank you, Vice Chair Alley. I appreciate the update. We will continue this discussion in the committees, and this will be coming back up regularly over the next few months as we work on our next revision of our work plan. And I will say that I will make the personal plea to every commissioner here that you're here because you care about this, and you're not getting paid for your time, and there's not any fame. And I believe that the planning staff is doing an excellent job bringing things before us and moving their issues forward as best they can. And there is a lot of work outside of what planning does that I think we should be involved in, but we need to be putting in the effort, because we can't ask planning staff to do that for us. So we need to work on identifying some of these issues where they reside and working that through the committees. And I'd be happy to talk to everybody one-on-one to help work out some of these ideas, but we're going to have to list some of this stuff ourselves if we want to change the direction any of this is going. And after that, I don't think that I have anything else to discuss about the work plan for 2021. We'll continue that work. Mr. Lamb or any of the staff have any comments?
No, sir.
Thank you. All right, we will move on down to the report section. And first is the chair's report. And I don't have much today. I would like to discuss, just so that the commission knows what's going on and to give context to some of the issues we've been talking about the Reedy Creek Edwards Mill Road project. Do you think anybody have any ideas about whether that would fit better under chair's report or general board comments? I don't suppose it really matters. Let's talk about it now.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Lamb, would you be able to bring this up on Google Maps? Is that possible for you to share so we can look at the intersection of Reedy Creek Road and Edwards Mill Road? And
If you notice, I disappeared off the meeting a few minutes ago because I had an internet outage. And as I've come back, I've tried to share my screen during the work plan presentation, but it does not seem to be working. So I will try and bring that up. If you'll give me a moment.
Well, I can just give everybody, if you open Google Maps and search for the corner of Reedy Creek Road and Edwards Mill, it's right there to the east of Umstead. This site recently applied for a rezoning. They got a rezoning, and it's a done deal. And they have submitted a review to the city for their development. And so the city at this point, it's an administrative thing, staff reviews to make sure that the plans fit with the conditions of the zoning. And the community became involved, and a very nice lady named Nancy LaPointe contacted myself and she contacted Mary and has been having discussions. The community is getting involved and concerned about the normal things that a community is involved with a big development. It does impact the Greenway. So the Greenway Trail comes along Reedy Creek Road and goes underneath Edwards Mill Road and then crosses Reedy Creek Road at this intersection. This planned development will necessitate the building of a couple extra turn lanes to expand this crosswalk. BPAC cannot act on this, as Mr. Lamb so rightfully pointed out. This is not within the purview of our work plan. It does fall in the purview of our work plan to become educated about this kind of stuff and how these plans impact the pedestrian and bicycle experience in Raleigh. So I think that we are well within our work plan to discuss this and to discuss the implications and perhaps talk about policy or planning ideas down the road to make these kind of situations easier to handle. And to be clear, this is not necessarily a horrible situation that requires getting all up in arms. It's a big development, and we're going to be seeing a lot of stuff like this going forward. So yeah, I won't get too much into it. This is the kind of issue I would like us to be able to discuss, maybe outside mitigation. So if the Greenway Trail is harder to cross, is that just something that we accept? Is that something that needs to be thought about policy-wise? If a development is going to impact the Greenway Trail specifically, it has an above and beyond duty to maintaining the pedestrian environment. It's not just some random sidewalk in the middle of Raleigh, northeast Raleigh. It's a pretty important connection. And Ms. Sell's also been working with some of these folks on different developments connecting to greenways, getting them to actually make those connections, which again is beyond the scope of what BPAC has purview on in these kind of issues. So going forward, one of the things that I would like to look at is using a traffic impact analysis to allow us to leverage pedestrian and bicycle improvements. So for those of you guys that don't know, a traffic impact analysis, when somebody plans a project or redevelopment big enough that it'll generate enough extra traffic, they have to study what that new traffic pattern will look like. If the indicators are correct, the developer might be required to give money to widen the road or to add turn lanes or to add, in this case, I think they're going to add a signalized intersection on Reedy Creek Road, most of which will be paid for the developer, and that comes out of the traffic impact analysis. And I would like policy committee to take a look at the traffic impact analysis and see if there's a way to incorporate pedestrian and bicycle facilities in that. I would love to hear staff's input on that, or Ms. Sell has her comment ready, so we'll start with her, but I'd like to get feedback from everybody on that.
Just real quick, I think it could be beneficial because like I've been a BPAC over 5 years and I don't really feel like I had, I've received like, I don't have a robust understanding of the impact analysis independent of the traffic analysis that's done per personal automobile. And I think it would be really beneficial to understand how things are scored for pedestrians and bikes, how that's factored in, you know, when a traffic analysis is done for rezoning, and maybe conditions are applied where the intersection is improved, quote unquote, but maybe made more tricky for a biker pet, et cetera. So what those trade-offs are and how they're handled, I think that could be really helpful to have that be like a staff report.
I agreed. staff, Mr. Lamb, do you think that would be something we could discuss over the next few months?
His internet went out.
Oh, and he disappeared.
Nope, that's a hard no.
All right. Well, we will put that back before him, and unless he has some sort of recommendation for a better way to go about it, I imagine that he will support that request. Ms. Hester, I see your hand is up there.
Oh, Eric's back. Do you want to have him answer your question first? I'm happy to.
We're like, wow, that's a hard no.
I promise that wasn't an intentional dodge on the part. So I did catch all of Ms. Sell's comments, and we'll be.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Maybe not.
Go ahead, Ms. Hester. We'll catch up with Eric when he gets back on.
Yeah, so I had a question just kind of about what, in terms of like, when you say the impact, to me, it seems like the project of this magnitude has sort of two impacts, right? It's like during construction and then also like the end of it, because obviously like I ride on this, I use this portion of the Greenway at least twice a week, sometimes more. So the tunnel underneath is great. It always works and it's there. Well, that's still I guess I'm just trying to understand when you say impact, like when we talk about construction, is that going to be a piece of it?
Specifically for this one, they will maintain, they're going to extend the tunnel actually, because the way they're going to have to widen the road, they're going to have to make the tunnel longer. And then they're going to maintain what's there. The biggest impact will be that there will be a crossing, there will be extra lanes to cross, and they're going to actually build a little greenway stub and start trying to work it down towards Wade Avenue and potentially underneath Wade Avenue through the Loblolly Trail. So then there will be a greenway crossing on the farther south on Edwards Mill as well.
Yeah, but I think it does bear in mind if we're going to start looking at this to think about what happens to these projects during construction as well. Because if you were talking about, something that's widening and making it harder, it would potentially cut off like most of Raleigh from Umstead per se, or like there are people I know who bike commute to Sass. That's a pretty major route that way as well. Not to mention the safety of just crossing that road is not ideal right now. And some people don't know that there's a tunnel that they can use. So,
yeah, and a challenge that I've had, I've been as staff brought into the discussions is making sure that everybody understands we're really designing for two different bicycle communities.
Yeah.
There's the kind of 8 to 80 that's perfectly comfortable on the Greenway and going a little out of their way to feel safer. And then there's the folks who are serious, lycra spandex or just commuters in a hurry. And they're on street, and there are bike lanes on Reedy Creek, at least on the eastern side between the Art Museum and the location of the new development. And as they expanded that new intersection to, I think it ends up being like a 7 or 8 lane cross section with all of the turn lanes and receiving lanes, from the 2 to 3 that it is now. Getting the through bikes as well as that crossing movement taken care of is a challenge.
yeah, and I'll say, as part of the spandex mafia, as I will deem myself, like I don't like going through the tunnel, right? But I do it because when I have to, but I'm also apt to run that light sometimes on a Sunday afternoon when there's no traffic, but I would never do that if it were 8 lanes. But I know that I'm like the minority here, and I'm speaking for like, taking my life in my own hands, right? But I do appreciate that there are lots of families that use that section, and that it should be designed for that, and really more pedestrians. I actually worry more about the pedestrians at this intersection than I would.
This development is likely to generate a lot of pedestrian traffic to the Greenway Trail. They want it to be a big,
which is great.
SAS kind of campus thing. But there's also development coming to the Caddy Corner side. If anybody back me up on that? I've heard rumors.
Is that the lab that was just completed?
Yeah, I think
is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, is it built?
It's already done. They just finished.
Oh my goodness, never mind. Yeah, way behind.
It's almost like we've been living through a pandemic.
So, yeah, plenty more development coming to that up and down that corridor as well too. So that'll be something the Greenway board will probably want to keep an eye on. But anyway, that's all I have for my chair report. Is pretty sparse for the first month of the year, and I'll allow the committee chairs to speak out if you have something else besides what you just went over that you need to report on. And we'll roll on to staff reports. Mr. Lamb. Oh, wait, I apologize, Mr. Tong.
In our planning committee today, we debriefed a little bit about the city's shared streets program that occurred during last year. And Mr. Black indicated that there's the possibility of another round of shared streets this year. So we would like any input from other commissioners about what criteria you might want to see to determine where these shared streets should be located, and if you have any ideas for where they should be implemented.
Yeah, you're welcome to share now or follow by email later. We're looking for different kinds of implementations to possibly test out. And we have barricades to work with, barricades and the signs. So to begin with, it's the beginning of big things. All right, let's move on to staff reports. Mr. Lamb, do you guys have any reports today?
Only just a couple of things. Actually, it's germane to the traffic impact analysis discussion that we were just having. Again, as my internet rudely cut out a couple of times. We recently hired a new senior transportation engineer that is heading up our traffic impact analysis program. And we'll be happy to have her come and speak to the commission, either in full commission or committee. Her name is Ann Conlon. Ann is a professional engineer that most recently has spent time with Alta Planning, who has authored a number of bicycle reports for the city. She was one of the engineers on staff there and is bringing a good perspective to us. And so she's going to be a terrific add in that regard to our program. I don't have any other items. I'll defer to Paul, B, or Barbara if they have anything to add.
I've got one that I'm presenting to Oaks and Spokes at their virtual annual meeting this Thursday at 7 o'clock. I think the link is on the website if you want to join. And in other news, I got an e-bike. Oh, there it is. So I got an e-bike today, and the other thing I wanted to say is, for those of you who weren't aware, we did leading pedestrian intervals on Dawson and McDowell early on in the pandemic. I know that some folks have been asking about the deployment of leading pedestrian intervals, and that was a big win. The posted speed there is 35, and the staff tinkered around with the timing. So now if you travel through that corridor at about 31 miles an hour, you should get all green. But the difference in the number of seconds was where they were able to steal a little time for pedestrians and create that interval for us.
Liz, will you be able to keep that pace up to catch all the greens through downtown?
Only on the downhill. Yeah, but I noticed that had happened actually when I was riding, because I ride across those streets a lot because I live downtown, and I noticed it a little, like about a month or so ago. So I don't know how long it's been in place, but I did notice it, which is awesome because it is a lot. It feels a lot safer, like kind of through. So congrats.
Well, thank you. That's really good news. All right. Then we will open the floor for general board comments. Does anybody have any comments of a general nature?
This is Robert. I have a question about the developments on Peace Street. Are there going to be any audible signals placed at that location? You know, that there's a new, it's where the new Publix is. And, you know, I guess they're condos. Seems like it's in need of some audible signals. And the last time I walked down there, it did not have them.
Okay, I'll work with staff, Eric, if you want to chime in. I figure I can let some of our operations folks know that there's an interest and follow up.
Okay.
I would think that there would be some. I know that we had done even the temporary construction audible signals as part of the interchange reconstruction with Peace Street. So I know that folks are aware that there's a need in that part of town.
Yeah, it's quite an integral crossing. Well, I mean, well, I made it across in 6 pieces. I mean, 1 piece, but it's a little tricky, you know. So that's but I'm glad that you're willing to look into that or make sure it's gonna happen. That's just my question.
All right, thanks, Robert.
So, Mr. Parrish, you have me trained. Every signal that I walk up to now, I press it and hold it to see what kind of audible reaction.
Well,
some of them will get louder.
Yeah. Yeah. On a good day, they work well.
All right. Is there any more general board comments? And we will open up the floor to upcoming events and announcements. Paul blew his on his staff report, so we don't have something to put in here. It's another quiet month. And I guess we'll move on to the confirmation of the next BPAC meeting, Monday, February 15th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Anybody have any conflicts or wish to make any comments?
I have a question, Dwight. We mentioned something about our retreat.
Last month, we voted to at least postpone the retreat, to not have one in March, keeping open the possibility of having a retreat later in the year as conditions develop.
Okay, and how will the topics be decided that we presented?
It's a lot like the agenda. We will get together as a commission and discuss the issues that were important to us, and staff will propose a slate of issues that they think that we should be learning and making decisions about. And
well, I have an additional one.
Sure.
This is with Mr. Nick's report. You know, I don't know exactly what I'm asking for, but it seems to me that we could have a guest who, from a minority, let's just say a low-income area of Raleigh, or what have you, who may have insights on what could be or what's really going on with low-income communities. I mean, we could sort of have a bullseye on how well, first is how starring are those communities starred in any way when it comes to roads or sidewalks? How does development affect minority communities? Things like that. I mean, does that make any sense of what I'm driving at?
I think I hear you. Trying to seek out members of the community that might otherwise not be giving their input here to see what issues are important to them. Is that kind of a
sort of a general, or maybe someone from some committee within our city that would have insights. I mean, but maybe Nick could speak to that. I mean, but I'd love to see it as an item on our retreat, as consideration, along with some of the other things that were mentioned last meeting.
Mr. Parrish, if I'm hearing your question correctly, or your suggestion correctly, it sounds like for the next commission meeting or for our commission retreat, you'd be interested in hearing from members of our community, specifically, if possible, from members of our underserved community, their thoughts on the growth and development that we've been experiencing in the city. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. No, I love the suggestion, and I think it's worth, further discussion. Perhaps we could talk about it at our next outreach subcommittee meeting. Maybe what that would look like, how we could facilitate it, because, unless there's, objection from the commission, I don't see why we couldn't facilitate this, in an effective and productive way. But this could be something we could discuss. I think our next our subcommittee meeting is on Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. And perhaps we could discuss it there.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Thank you, Mr. Parrish.
You're welcome, sir.
All right. I believe that moves us on to, unless anybody has any more comments. The confirmation of the next BPAC meeting, I think we said Monday, February 15th, 2021 at 6 p.m. There's no further comments or announcements. I think we will announce the adjournment of the meeting. And so, meeting so adjourned. Thank you for coming, everybody, and I look forward to talking to everybody soon.
Bye. Happy New Year.
Everybody.